On this video, we will learn how to optimize detailed CAD mechanical model into CG model. The video will be divided in 3 segments. First one being intentional design, highlighting the importance of considering the final purpose while creating the part. Secondly, the preparation and export using SolidWorks. And lastly, using Blender to get the final file to be able to use it on VFX, Fortnite, or VR. Step 0. Intentional design. When designing, it is always important to have in mind the final purpose from the very beginning, which in this case, the end purpose will be to animate the object. That's why we should start designing each part, taking into account the final mobility of the robot. Let's use this assembly of robot dog as an example. If the final purpose, for example, of this hand over here is to rotate it, then we will have to look up to the point of origin, which is located right in the middle. All right, so the hand can move around that point. Now, if we take as an example the arm of the robot, we can look up to its point of origin, and we can see that the arm rotates around that point over there. So both of these points of origin are correct. Once you have made sure each part has located its point of origin correctly, we can move on. This step is not necessary, but will save a lot of time when animating. And now let's go on to step 1. Step 1, preparation and export of SolidWorks file. Getting coordinates ready. Let's look first at the coordinates of the entire assembly. Y-axis is looking up, while X and Z-axis are at the top plane. On Blender, the tool that we will be using for our final export, Z-axis is looking up, while X and Y-axis are at the top plane. We can modify coordinates later, but if we can do it on SolidWorks to optimize and make easier further work, then why not? The easiest way to do so is to create a new assembly using the previous one and locate it how we need it. Let's do it. First, click on New Assembly. Select Robot Dog. And make sure that the Graphics Preview option is checked. Now, when you pass your mouse through the screen, you can rotate the object. We're going to rotate it on X by clicking here. And then we'll click on OK. Now, our Z-axis is looking up, while our X and Y-axis are on the top plane. Now, let's get our colors and textures ready. Please ignore this step if you don't care about colors or textures. Something you need to know about exporting files on SolidWorks is that materials and appearances come in one package, which means that if you have one colored part, but it doesn't have any material, when you export it, the part will be exported, but it will ignore the color when using it in another software, like Blender. To export properly, we must make sure each part of the assembly has a material, and be aware that the color of the whole part will be exported as one, which means that you cannot add a texture or color to individual faces. If you want to do so, you can use multi-body technique on the desired part, so it can have multiple colors or textures. Now, let's see how to apply materials without changing appearances. Go to the first part of the assembly, in this case is wheel, and then right-click on Material, and click on Edit Material. You can select any material, and I will select aluminum 1060 alloy. Then right-click on the material, and click on Add to Favorites. Now, go to the Appearance tab, and unselect this option. Click Apply, and close. Go to the next part, which in this case, wheel has already a material, so I will go on to leg, and right-click, and then click on the material that you have added recently. Do the same for each individual part. Now we are ready to export. We can either export to STL or 3MF, but if you want to keep your colors and textures, you will need 3MF. Let's begin. Click on Save As. Select 3MF or STL according to your preferences. I will select 3MF, which is 3D manufacturing format. Click on Options. Be sure to select it actually automatically selects parts, but be sure to select Fine to have a better resolution. And select the options that say Include Materials and Include Appearances. Now click OK. And put a name to your file. I will name it robot dog. And I will click on Save. I will click OK. And that's it. Now, let's go to the step number 2. Using Blender to get the final file. Open Blender and create a new general file. Okay? For default, Blender does not have an option to import or export 3MF files. We will have to install an extension. If you're using STL, please ignore this process. Installing 3MF extension. First, look up in Google or any internet browser, Blender 3MF format. Click on the GitHub link. Now, go down to Installation Instructions and click on Releases page. And download the zip file. Once you're ready, open Blender. Click on Edit. And then on Preferences. Then click on the tab that says Add-ons and in the button that says Install. Go to your downloads or the binder where you have your zip file, click on it, and then click on Install Add-on. If it is not already enabled, select the box to enable it, and then just click on the X. Now, let's import the 3MF or STL file. Click on File, and then click on Import, and select 3MF or STL, according to your preferences, and look at the file that we have already exported from SolidWorks, and click on Import 3MF. It takes a little, but it's finally over here. Okay, so now, if you have the default cube, just like me, just delete it off the scene by going to the scene collection, doing a right click, and then delete. Okay, so we only have our robot design here. Now, let's finally export the FBX file. To do so, click on File and then Export. Select the option that says FBX. And select the folder where you want your file to be located, name the file, and click on Export FBX. That's all. Now you have your file ready to use on VFX, Fortnite, or VR.